Hello and welcome to the Bears and Lions podcast. This is the podcast where we challenge our present by viewing our past. I'm a firm believer that our greatest future lies within the correct view of our past, because when you actually look at it, you're going to find out that, there are probably some seasons that didn't feel like you bore much fruit during that season. But as time goes on, you see a lot of value from that. And that's exactly what today's conversation is going to be about in growth seasons, as well as seasons of growth. I really wanted to have this conversation last week, but decided to push it forward because we experienced daylight savings yesterday. So I cannot wait to have this conversation. I really hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you on the other side. It's not by chance that this conversation is happening today. Originally, I had it planned for last week, but I was like, no. It needs to be moved to Monday. And why does it need to be moved to Monday? That's because Sunday is daylight savings. So yesterday, we lost an hour, but we technically gained time, if that makes sense, because the sun is now out longer and it's going to be rising earlier and earlier. So it's the shift of the season. And that's exactly what this conversation is about today, is growth seasons or seasons of growth. And, we could talk about plants and things like that and the growth and seasons and whatnot, but I want to really hone in on you. I want to hone in on your growth. I want to hone in on my growth and share some things from my life and some things that I hope will be beneficial. Now, it may be a shorter conversation today, but ultimately, I really want you to walk away from this conversation thinking about, what fruit am I bearing? What are the things around me that I'm growing? Am I awake and ready to do this? Now, you're going to get that in a second. I'll tell you why I say, are you awake? But if you just look at the growth patterns of plants, right? I do have friends that love houseplants. I don't have any houseplants yet. If you have any great houseplants that are really good and have benefits, I would be interested, because I have never actually owned a houseplant. But I do know that a lot of times when you have a houseplant that's sick or dying, they have a bunch of apps. I've seen them on social media where you can be like, oh, it needs more sunlight, or oh, it needs more water. I think people are like that too. And I really do. I think there are certain just little key indicators where you can say, you know what, maybe that person needs a little bit of a break. Maybe they're stressed out about this. Maybe they need some water. Maybe they need to go for a walk in the sun. And I do think that although we don't have an app, I do think that it is visible. A lot of times we wear our hearts on our sleeves. We wear our emotions out in the open. And if you take a deep dive into the anxiety or stress of somebody, you might just see that, you know what, they probably are just like that plant in the fact that they just need some water and sunlight. And when I focus on my issues, anxiety and stress, I think, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. All these complex fixes along the way. But in reality, I'm like a plant. Give me some water and let me go for a walk in the sun, and I'm going to be okay. And I say that kind of with tongue in cheek, but it's actually true. See, in Tennessee, where I used to live, there was 2 parks. I used to go for walks every Saturday and Sunday. That was my rule. I would always go for about an hour walk on Saturday and Sunday in the sun, pretty much every Saturday and Sunday. And I haven't found a place out here in Baltimore yet, which I really need to. If you're in the Baltimore area and you know of some really nice walking parks, please let me know. I'd love to get to know those. It's also been really bitter cold, so that's also been in effect. But I'm definitely in need of a walk in the sun. I'm in need of that. I think that a lot of times a little bit of water and a little bit of sunshine does you so much and does so much wonder. And I think a lot of the early content of this podcast was formulated on those really exciting walks. I'd put in a podcast, or I'd listen to a TED Talk, or I'd listen to a really cool study on something specific, and I'd let it marinate while I walked in the sun, and then just let it sink in. And it really made me think of what type of growth takes place and what are the growth seasons and how does that work. And although I try to share from a standpoint of, hey, this is what I've gone through, this may work for you, I have to be 100% honest with you, and I'll be candid. A lot of the stuff that I talk about on this podcast and a lot of the stuff that I do, it worked for me. It may not work for you. Now it might, but it may not, because we're all different. And when you think of how different and unique each individual human is, I also look at all the different trees and how individually unique they are, right? Some trees grow really quick. Some trees grow really slow. Some trees grow really tall. Some trees grow really short. And that's not a short joke. I'm just saying that there are a lot of different types of trees. And if you break it down, there's the main tree that I think of is the deciduous tree. Now, I'm from the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, where each season was changed by the trees would show the change of season immediately. So in the spring, like right now, all of the trees that had lost their leaves are growing new leaves, and there's going to be this beautiful hue of green along the hills, and it'll be like light green, it'll be yellowish, it'll be darker greens in some areas, and then it'll be like a brownish green where what was dead is now coming back to life. It's waking up. That's why I wanted to share that before, is maybe it's time to wake up. A lot of times deciduous trees, they will go to sleep when the winter or the fall comes, and all the leaves will fall. And of course, in the Smoky Mountains, it's beautiful orange, yellow, reds, and then all the leaves fall off. But that's a deciduous tree. And they go to sleep, and then they wake back up in the spring, right? The temperature is a little bit warmer. The light, it's a little bit lighter for a little bit longer, right? The sun changes, like we had this just yesterday with daylight savings. The sun is going to be out a little bit longer, and the trees will feel that, so they'll start coming back alive. And I'm just wondering how many of us need to come back alive, come back to life, I should say, and to wake up and say, you know what? Spring is in the air. We're ready to go. There's some things we want to do before summer. Maybe there's some things we want to do specifically this year that we haven't yet started. And now is the time to come back alive and check, what fruit are we bearing this year? You know, if you are an orange tree and you go into bloom, right, you may not produce the oranges all year long, but you know that spring comes, the warmer weather, you're going to start producing that fruit. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you want to connect with me further, you can find me on my social media. I'm most active on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, at Kyle Vaught. That's KYLEV as in Victor, ATT. But I'm also trying to become a little bit more active on Instagram and Threads, which is at Kyle_Vaught. So shoot me a follow, shoot me a message, say hi, or maybe there's a topic that you want me to discuss on a future podcast episode. Either way, I cannot wait to get connected. Now let's get back to the conversation. And it's so powerful when you really recognize that, you know what, now is the time to start kicking in gear. We've collected all of the emotions and we've collected all of the nutrients that we need to do this. So let's start bearing fruit. Let's go for it. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think a lot of people, especially on social media, they want you to bear fruit all year long. They want you to be so consistent, right? I'm guilty of this too, because I've hit on consistency so much. And I definitely will admit I'm guilty of saying you need to be consistent and consistent and consistent. When consistency doesn't always mean that you're on it every single day for every single week, for every single month of every single year. I think consistency often will be you do it as often as you possibly can. And then there are some times when you can't. And that's part of the seasons, right? Trees will be consistent in the fact that they will bear fruit every single year during season. But then in the off seasons, they die. You know, the leaves will all fall off. The seeds will all drop. Whatever they need to do, they survive. And they just suck up the nutrients that they can for the next season of growth and the next season of producing that fruit. And I think of like evergreen trees. Everybody on social media wants you to be this evergreen. You're always bearing fruit. You're always green. You're always shining. You're always good. You're always doing this. You're always pushing, right? The David Goggins effect. You should always be on 100% of the time. You should never, ever stop. And if you ever stop, you're going to die. That's not necessarily true. And as somebody who's gone through a season of not bearing fruit over the last few months, I feel very much like there is a time frame to be awaken. There's a time frame of right now in the spring to where I'm ready to kind of get back to work in a way. Not that I haven't ever stopped working, but there's definitely been a shift. And over the last few months, I could tell that something was not quite there because I was still trying my best to be as consistent, but I'm only as consistent as I can be. And that's a deciduous tree, right? You recognize that the seasons are going to take you to where sometimes you will have a lot of leaves, sometimes you'll lose all those leaves, and that's okay. And when I used to think I needed to be emotionally evergreen, right? I'm always smiling. I'm always going to be happy. Guns in the air. Yeah, it's Monday. But that's really hard. And that's nearly impossible, to be honest, because seasons will change and you lose all your leaves and you lose all your comfort. And then you just feel naked and bare like a tree in the winter. And I think it takes a little bit of time to recognize, you know what, maybe, just maybe, we should enjoy the seasons a little bit more, focus on what we can focus on, and at the end of the day, recognize that we're all going to grow in our own rhythm at our own time. And so I wanted to kind of confess that, yeah, I've focused on consistency a little bit too much. I've also focused on not explaining the consistency because you know what? Consistency is doing it consistently. And trees that die during some seasons and wake up during other seasons are consistent. And that is okay. If you know you're having, a little bit of time or you need a little bit of time where you let go and you say, hey, look, I need to take as many nutrients as I can. I need a little water. I need a little sunshine. I can't really handle this type of pressure. I just need to do this right now and focus on me. I think sometimes that is the key, is being able to say, you know what? I'm in a season where I'm not providing the fruit. I'm not bearing the fruit. I'm just collecting the nutrients so that when that season comes back around, my fruit will be tasty and delicious and ready to go. And it's a beautiful thing of when you think of just the mentality of bearing fruit. Now, I really like this. I'm not going to share what it is yet, but I'm just going to share this. I like that if you were to look at the fruit of your life, here are a list of a few things that can be fruits of your lives. What is love? Are you bearing love? What is joy? What is peace? Patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control? What are the things in your life that you're bearing, the fruit in your life that you're bearing? And I say that those are the fruits of the lives that are important. And I share that it's actually from Scripture in Galatians 5:22 through 23. But it doesn't matter if you believe in Scripture or not. I think you would agree that those are the fruits of our lives that we should be excited about. And the verse is, the full verse, it says, but the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. And if I was to just simply share those things with you and say, is this the type of fruit that you want to bear or that would be good for a human to bear? I think a lot of people would agree and say, yeah, I think everybody should strive to bear that fruit. So that's my question with you today, is what season are you in? And with the change of the season to spring from winter, are we ready? And maybe you're listening from halfway across the world, so your season is actually about to go to winter, or it's been in winter, or it's been in summer, and now it's going to fall. Recognize the season that your life is in, right? Everybody grows at a different pace, so you may be in the fruit-bearing season, and you may, end up bearing that fruit all the way through to the June, July, August timeframe. And then you may go dormant for a time, and that's okay. Your goal is to consistently bear fruit. It's not always going to be that you're going to bear fruit all the time. You don't have to be evergreen to bear fruit. It's hard to kind of mentally wrap your head around the fact that you don't need to do it all the time. I think it's been a battle in my brain because I've wanted to be the David Goggins, right? A consistency. Just do it, and never stop. But the more I've tried to do that, the more I've realized, you know what? I don't have any leaves on me. I don't have anything to bring to the table, and I have zero fruit to bear. And it may just be time for me to bring in as many nutrients as I can and share that with the people around me. And recognize that, you know what? We can at least plant and water and bring in some sunshine to the people's lives that are around us as best as possible, right? We can be some shade, maybe, for the people around us. We can be cooling and bring a calming presence with something nice, right? I remember there was a tree growing up in Texas that was really beautiful when it was in bloom, but then when it was bare, it just looked wildly unique. And it was actually just something that was really cool. We used to climb it all the time. And it was a lot easier to climb in the winter because there were no leaves or anything, so we could see which branches could hold us. And maybe that's you. Maybe while you're in the winter seasons, you're just a home for people. And you're just a home and a presence for the friends around you and the relationships that you have around you, because they can see, oh, I can hang on to this. I can hold on to this branch. I never knew I could see it before, but now I can hold on to it because I can see it. It's gonna hold me. I really have a couple conversations set up for the next few weeks that I really want to hone in on the fact that we're very relational people. We're very relational beings. And it's an honor for me because I've lived a little bit of life now. I'll be 35 in a month or so. And I look back and I think of all the good times that I had, pretty much all revolved around memories with people. There's a few I'm going to share that didn't. But that's going to be specific, and that probably will be next conversation. But that's going to do it for this one for today. I really hope that you are in a growth season or a season of bearing fruit. And if you're not in a season of bearing fruit, I want you to know it's going to be okay. Get as many nutrients as you can. You don't have to try to force yourself to be an evergreen. Get as much rest, water, and sunshine as possible. Daylight savings hit, so we get a little bit more sunshine. Make sure that you get out and enjoy it. I really hope that you enjoy. We have a bunch of stuff happening. So if you want to follow me on my socials, please do reach out, say hi, shoot me a message. I'd love to connect with you. It's at Kyle Vaught. That's KYLEV as in Victor ATT. That's on X, which is formerly known as Twitter. And then on Instagram, it's at Kyle_Vaught, V as in Victor ATT. I really look forward to connecting you. For everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.